Before we begin, please leave a comment, share your thoughts and let us know your lessons learned in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. In the lush, sun-drenched town of Aanta, where the air is heavy with the scent of blooming flowers and the hills stand tall against the horizon, two stepsisters, Adais and Kem, were born into different worlds but grew up as if they were twins. Despite having separate mothers, their lives were entwined like the roots of ancient trees. From the moment they could walk, they were inseparable, two halves of the same whole, a bond that defied logic and expectation. Adais was the radiant one, her presence like a gentle breeze that caught the attention of everyone she met. She had a gift with words, her charisma melting hearts effortlessly. From their school days to university, Adais excelled, her beauty and eloquence making her the darling of their school. The one everyone adored. Teachers praised her, classmates sought her friendship, and relatives whispered of her future greatness. No one could take their eyes off her. And for the most part, Adais never seemed to mind. She was kind-hearted and generous, a girl who wore her smile like a crown. On the other hand, there was Kem. She was quieter, more reserved, but in the depths of her eyes, there was a brilliance that many overlooked. Where Adais shone in the limelight, Kem thrived in the shadows, calculating, observing, and always one step ahead. People admired her intelligence, but it wasn't the same kind of admiration that followed Adais. It was more measured, more cautious. She was not the one everyone flocked to, but there was something undeniably magnetic about her presence. People often found themselves speaking to her, drawn to her quiet demeanor, the way she made you feel as though you were the only person in the room. In her stillness, she held power, but while everyone else saw a composed young woman, beneath that calm exterior brewed something darker. As they grew older, their bond, though strong, began to subtly shift. It wasn't obvious at first. Their lives continued on the same path, side by side, school, university, and then their first jobs. But as they matured, a seed of competition took root in Kem's heart, one she buried deep beneath layers of affection and loyalty. There was always a part of her that measured herself against Adais. That sought validation not from the world, but from Adais's validation. The truth was that Kem loved her sister truly, deeply, but she also resented her. There was a hunger inside her, a desire for something she couldn't name, a desire to step out of the shadows and claim what she felt was rightfully hers. The two sisters landed their first jobs in Kaduna, an industrial city that promised adventure and opportunity. Adais, with her charm, found herself quickly surrounded by admirers. But it was there that she met Hassan. He was everything a girl could dream of, wealthy, chivalrous, and strikingly handsome. Their first meeting felt like a fairy tale, one that could have been scripted by destiny itself. He was rich beyond imagination, his presence commanding yet gentle. The connection between them was immediate, like magnets pulling at each other. Irresistible and undeniable. To Adais, this was everything she had ever wanted. Hassan's family was wealthy and influential, a world that seemed to open up to her in a way she had never imagined. It was a world of luxury, power, and security. And then there was Kem. She watched it all unfold from the sidelines, her smile painted with forced joy. But her heart was sinking. She had always stood beside Adais, supporting her, cheering her on. But this time, something was different. This was not just another admirer. This was the kind of love that could change everything. Hassan wasn't just any man. He was a man who could offer Adais the world. The kind of world that Kem had secretly dreamed of, but had never been able to touch. And in the corner of her heart, a seed of jealousy sprouted, its roots twisting deeper with every passing day. As Adais and Hassan's relationship blossomed, Kem's internal struggle grew more intense. She tried to bury her feelings beneath a mask of happiness for her sister. But the weight of her resentment began to choke her. The more Adais spoke of Hassan, the more Kem felt a gnawing emptiness inside her. She told herself that she was happy for her sister, that it didn't matter. But every word that came from Adais's lips about her future with Hassan felt like a dagger. A reminder that this love was slipping through her fingers. It wasn't long before Adais announced that Hassan had proposed. The joy in her voice as she spoke was palpable. But to Kem, those words felt like poison. She faked a smile, pretending to share in the excitement. But in the silence that followed, her heart screamed. This wasn't just a proposal. This was a shifting of the tides. The moment when everything would change. And deep down, Kem knew it was only the beginning of a storm. Kem's jealousy, once quiet and subtle, now began to consume her. The bond she had once cherished with her sister was starting to fray. Threads unraveling, one strand at a time. But she couldn't stop herself. Every time Adais mentioned Hassan, it felt like a reminder of everything she had lost and everything she would never have. This wasn't just about a man, this was about a life. A future that she had once imagined for herself. And now it was being handed to her sister. Effortlessly, while she was left to watch from the sidelines. Addis's wedding day was a spectacle. A fairy tale that seemed to come to life before their eyes. The venue was adorned with flowers. Crystal chandeliers hanging like stars above the ballroom. Adais floated through the crowd, glowing with happiness. And Hassan stood by her side, beaming with pride. But as the ceremony unfolded, Kem stood there, a silent figure in the background. Her smile a little too wide. Her eyes a little too cold. She was playing the part of the loving sister. But underneath, the storm was building. Kem volunteered for everything: wedding planning, dress fittings, vendor negotiations, ensuring that she was indispensable. Everyone praised her for being the perfect sister. The one who could always be counted on. Even Hassan's mother took notice, calling her the most dependable sister any bride could hope for. But behind closed doors, Kem's thoughts were darker. She smiled, but every smile held a secret. A promise to herself that no one could see. On the night before the wedding, as she stood before the mirror, dressed in silk robes Adais had gifted her, Kem whispered to her reflection, "You will wear the crown. You will take her place. She's just holding it for you." And in that moment, something shifted. Her sisterhood with Adais died. And in its place was a mission. A mission that would change everything. The wedding of Adais and Hassan was nothing short of a fairy tale. A stunning venue. Guests dressed in the finest attire. And the sparkling lights from crystal chandeliers set the scene for a night that would forever be etched in the minds of everyone present. Adais floated through the crowd like a vision. Her face alight with joy. Every step filled with grace. Hassan, ever the perfect gentleman, stood proudly by her side. His eyes filled with admiration for the woman he had chosen to spend the rest of his life with. They were the picture of love. A love that seemed to conquer all, except for one thing. Kem stood quietly in the background. The perfect picture of a devoted sister. She wore a dress of gold. One that shimmered beneath the chandeliers. Her beauty undeniable. She was every bit the gracious maid of honor. Beaming at Adais. Her smile wide but strangely hollow. No one could see the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. Not even Hassan, who praised her for being the best sister a bride could have. Yet, beneath the sweetness, beneath the smiles, something far more sinister was at work. Kem had been playing the part of the perfect sister for months now. She had taken charge of wedding preparations, volunteering to help with everything from the venue decoration to the dress fittings. She made herself indispensable to Adais, ensuring that every decision was praised, every task completed efficiently. The more praise she received, the more powerful she felt. She could do no wrong in the eyes of the family. And no one suspected that every action, every kind word, was calculated. Every step she took was part of a larger plan, one that would soon unravel the perfect world that Adais and Hassan had built together. But for Kem, the wedding was more than just a celebration of her sister's love. It was her moment to shine. Her moment to finally take what she believed was rightfully hers. She had played the role of the supportive sister. The one who would do anything for Adais. But every moment spent beside her, every time she smiled in her sister's face, Kem felt the anger inside her grow. This wasn't just about a man. It wasn't just about Hassan. This was about her place in the world. This was about the life she had dreamed of. The life that Adais had effortlessly claimed. As the wedding ceremony continued, Kem stood beside Adais, watching as her sister was adorned with flowers, her face glowing with happiness. The guests were enchanted by the bride, her joy contagious. But to Kem, it all felt like a cruel joke. Every word spoken to Adais, every compliment, every laugh, felt like a reminder that this wasn't her moment. This wasn't her life. And as the night wore on, Kem's obsession grew. She was trapped in a cycle of bitterness, masked by her facade of being the perfect sister. But inside, her heart was blackened with envy. The reception was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. But Kem couldn't bring herself to join in. Instead, she lingered on the edges, watching as Adais and Hassan were swept away by the crowd. Every moment they spent together, every touch, every whispered word, felt like a knife to Kem's heart. She tried to push the feelings away, to focus on the role she had been assigned. She was supposed to be the one to ensure everything went smoothly. She was supposed to be the one who helped Adais enjoy her night. But inside, the jealousy festered, and the mask she wore began to crack. As the night drew to a close, the newlyweds shared a dance, their love evident in every step. Kem, standing by the side, felt like an outsider in her own family. She had been a part of Adis's life for so long. But now, in this moment, she realized she had lost her place. Hassan, with all his charm and wealth, had taken her sister from her. The bond they once shared, the connection they had grown up with, was slipping through her fingers. And with that realization came a sharp, cold resolve. That night, alone in her room, Kem sat before the mirror, her face devoid of emotion. She had been the perfect sister, the perfect maid of honor. But in her heart, she had been plotting. She whispered softly to her reflection, "You will wear the crown. You will take her place. She's just holding it for you." The words felt strange on her lips, like a curse whispered to the universe. A vow she intended to keep. That was the moment when everything changed. The moment when Kem's love for her sister turned into something much darker. In the weeks that followed, Kem's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She continued to play the part of the loving, devoted sister, but her thoughts were consumed by one thing: taking her sister's place. She began to manipulate every situation, every interaction, to her advantage. She played the role of the caring sister, always there to help, always offering her support, but her help came with strings attached. She began to insert herself more and more into Adis's life, controlling the narrative, steering conversations, and making sure she was always at the center of attention. No one could see the darkness creeping into her soul. Not even Adais, who remained blissfully unaware of the poison spreading around her. Kem's obsession with Hassan grew stronger with each passing day. She carefully crafted her image as the perfect sister-in-law, the one who could be relied upon to handle all the details, the one who could be trusted with everything. Hassan, grief-stricken by the loss of his first love, leaned on Kem for comfort. He began to see her not just as a sister, but as a savior. She was always there when he needed her, always ready to lend a helping hand, always ready to listen. And to Hassan, that was exactly what he needed. But to Kem, it was all part of the plan. Every gesture, every word, every touch was carefully calculated. She was positioning herself to be more than just a sister. She was positioning herself to be the one Hassan turned to, the one he needed. It was during this time that Adis's health began to decline. At first, it was small things: fatigue, dizziness, a slight loss of energy. But soon, it became more noticeable. Adis, once vibrant and full of life, began to fade. Her skin grew pale, her laughter grew softer, and her once bright eyes became dull and lifeless. Doctors were baffled, unable to find a cause for her symptoms. Yet, Kem was always there, playing the part of the loving sister, tending to Adis's needs, administering her medication, and making sure she ate. Everyone praised her devotion, calling her an angel, a savior. But the truth was far more sinister. Kem, hidden behind the mask of kindness, was poisoning her sister. Every meal she prepared, every drink she made, was laced with a slow-acting poison. She watched as Adis grew weaker, her body slowly shutting down. And with each passing day, Kem's power grew. She was the one in control now. She was the one who held the keys to the kingdom. And soon, she would be the one wearing the crown. But there was someone watching. Someone who had begun to notice the subtle shifts in behavior, the strange looks, the whispered conversations. Young Chick, Adis and Hassan's son, had been observing Kem closely. At first, he couldn't put his finger on it. But as his mother's condition worsened, he began to notice things that didn't add up. The way Kem would always hover around Adis, the way she would take charge of everything, even the smallest details. Chick's young mind couldn't understand the full extent of what was happening. But instinctively, he knew something was wrong. The boy began to feel the weight of the change in his home. The once joyful atmosphere was now heavy with tension. His father, consumed by grief, had withdrawn emotionally, and his mother, once the center of his world, was now a frail shadow of her former self. And in the midst of it all stood Kem, quietly pulling the strings. No one could see the storm brewing inside her, the storm that was about to tear the family apart. As the days passed, Kem's influence over Hassan grew stronger. She was always there, always offering comfort, always stepping in when he needed her. And Hassan, blinded by his grief and desperate for any semblance of comfort, leaned on her more and more. He had no idea that the woman who had been his savior was the very one responsible for his wife's slow demise. But Chick, though just a child, could sense the darkness that was closing in around him. He watched as his father grew more distant, as his mother grew weaker, and as Kem seemed to become more powerful with each passing day. And in the quiet corners of his room, Chick began to form a plan. He may not have the words to explain what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure: he had to protect his mother. And he had to stop Kem before it was too late. The mansion, once filled with the laughter and joy of a growing family, now sat in silence. The walls, which had once echoed with the vibrancy of life, stood stoic, as if mourning the loss of something precious. The once warm air of the home now felt heavy, suffocating, the kind of quiet that wraps around you like a shroud. The family had been torn apart by the cruel twist of fate and the dark plans of one sister. And as the days dragged on, it seemed that nothing could fix the damage that had been done. Hassan, still in the depths of grief, barely left his room. His once carefree demeanor had been replaced by a cloud of sorrow, so thick and overwhelming that he couldn't remember the last time he had laughed or smiled. The love of his life, Adice, was gone, and he found himself lost in a world without her. He had tried to move forward, tried to live for his son, Chick, but the weight of his wife's death crushed him at every turn. Kem, ever the devoted sister-in-law, remained by his side, her presence more pronounced than ever. She was the one who brought him his meals, who sat with him in silence when he couldn't find the words to speak. She comforted him in ways that seemed to heal the cracks in his broken heart. Hassan, grateful for any semblance of peace, leaned on her heavily. He trusted her implicitly. She was his anchor, the one person who seemed to understand his pain. But what Hassan didn't realize was that Kem's comfort was a carefully crafted illusion, a mask that hid her true intentions. She had worked for months, even years, to weave herself into the fabric of his life. And now, with Adice gone, she was positioning herself to be more than just a sister-in-law. She was positioning herself to be the woman in his life. Yet in the shadows, young Chick, still too young to understand fully what had happened, was growing increasingly uneasy. The child's heart was pure, untouched by the complexities of adult emotions and deception. But his instincts were sharp. He had seen enough, heard enough, and felt enough to know that something was terribly wrong. The warmth and light that had once filled the house with laughter were now replaced by a cold, oppressive atmosphere, one that clung to every corner. Chick had begun to notice the strange way his father acted, the way his smile no longer reached his eyes, the way he seemed to lean on Kem more and more. And it frightened him. But it wasn't just Hassan's behavior that troubled him. It was the change in his mother's health. Adice had always been the center of his world, her bright, sparkling eyes, her infectious laughter, the warmth of her embrace, but now, she was a mere shadow of her former self. Day by day, she grew weaker, her skin growing paler, her movements slower, her laughter more subdued. At first, the doctors were baffled. Blood tests came back normal. There was no explanation for her rapid decline. But Chick, in his young mind, started to put the pieces together. He saw how Kem was always there, tending to his mother with an unsettling intensity. He saw how Kem always hovered, always controlling the smallest details of his mother's care. It was as if she was everywhere and nowhere at once, manipulating the situation with cold precision. Chick had always loved his mother deeply, and the thought that something was wrong filled him with dread. He couldn't explain it, not with words, but he could feel it deep in his bones. The house that had once been filled with joy was now filled with whispers. And the more he observed, the more he felt like an outsider in his own home. Every time he tried to speak to his father, every time he tried to reach out, Hassan seemed distant, lost in his grief. Chick couldn't help but wonder, had his mother's sickness been an accident? Or was something darker at play? It was then that he found the notebook. Hidden beneath his pillow, tucked away in a small drawer, was a leather-bound journal. It had once belonged to his mother. a gift from Hassan on her birthday. Chick had always admired the elegant script inside the pages, the way his mother had written down her thoughts, her hopes, her dreams. But this time, when he opened the journal, it was different. The pages were filled with small, cryptic notes, things that didn't make sense to him at first. But as he read, slowly and carefully, he began to understand. These weren't his mother's words. These were the words of someone else. Someone who had been secretly writing down their actions, their plans. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Kem's. His heart raced as he flipped through the pages. Kem had been planning this all along. She had poisoned his mother. Slowly and methodically, every detail was written in that journal. The meals, the drinks, the times when his mother had fallen ill, and the steps Kem had taken to ensure that Addis's decline continued. Every word in that journal was a blow to Chick's young heart. And with each page, his world crumbled further. The realization hit him like a tidal wave. His mother's death had not been natural. It had been orchestrated. Chick's first instinct was to confront Kem, to shout, to scream, to demand answers. But he knew he couldn't do that. Not yet. Kem had become so entrenched in their lives, so manipulative, that no one would believe him. No one would listen to a child. And so, Chick did what any frightened child would do. He kept his fear hidden, buried deep inside, and he began to plan. He needed proof. He needed something that would expose the truth for all to see. He couldn't let his mother's death be in vain. He couldn't let Kem get away with what she had done. And so, he began to watch. He listened. He observed. Every word, every action, every look exchanged between Kem and his father was now scrutinized. Chick's young mind was sharp, more aware than anyone realized. And he began to piece together the puzzle that had eluded him for so long. One evening, after Kem had gone to bed, Chick snuck into her room. His small fingers trembled as he rifled through her drawers, searching for something, anything, that would provide the proof he so desperately needed. It was then that he found it, hidden beneath a pile of clothes. There was a phone. It was Kem's phone, and it was unlocked. Chick's heart pounded in his chest as he tapped into the voice memo app, the one place where secrets were kept. The first recording he found was chilling. It was a message to someone, a conversation that sent a wave of nausea through him. Kem's voice was smooth, calculated, as she spoke, her words dripping with venom. "I've done what I had to do," she said. "She's gone now. No one can stop me. He's mine. I'll take everything that was hers." Chick's blood ran cold. The truth was now undeniable. His mother had been killed, not by fate, but by the hands of the woman who had claimed to be a sister. He didn't know how much more he could bear. But one thing was clear. He had to stop Kem, no matter the cost. The next day, as the family gathered in the living room, Chick made his move. He had connected the phone to the mansion's central speaker system, the one that broadcasted throughout the house. As the family sat, laughing and talking, unaware of what was about to happen, Chick pressed play. The words came through the speakers loud and clear. "I've done what I had to do. She's gone now. No one can stop me. He's mine. I'll take everything that was hers." The room fell into stunned silence. Hassan, who had been sitting next to Kem, turned slowly toward her, his face draining of color. His eyes locked onto hers. Confusion, disbelief, and horror all playing out across his features. What is this?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Chick stepped forward, his small form trembling with fear but resolute. "She killed my mother," he said simply, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Chaos erupted. Hassan collapsed to the floor, his legs giving way beneath him as the weight of the truth crashed down on him. Kem stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock. But it was clear that her mask had slipped. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling, and there was no escape. In the aftermath, Kem was arrested. The investigation revealed the full extent of her manipulations, her poisoning, and her scheming. But even as justice was served, it came at a terrible cost. Hassan was shattered, consumed by guilt and grief. Chick, though vindicated, found no solace in his victory. The damage had been done. The family was broken beyond repair. And the mansion that had once been filled with love and laughter now stood as a hollow monument to the cruelty that had unfolded within its walls. The silence in the house was deafening. Chick, though victorious, knew that no amount of justice could ever bring his mother back. And as he stood in the empty, cold halls of the mansion. He realized that sometimes, the truth comes too late to heal the wounds it uncovers. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end of this intense journey. Your support means the world. And we're so glad you could experience this story with us. If you enjoyed the twists, the suspense, and the emotional rollercoaster, please consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on more thrilling stories like this one. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the story. So don't forget to leave a comment below sharing what you think. Your feedback is incredibly valuable and helps us improve with every new story we tell. Thank you again for watching. And we hope to see you in our next video. Stay tuned.